Welcome to the AI, The Future of Us, a podcast-style video series that explores the ways AI is shaping our future and how we can prepare for the changes that lie ahead. I'm your host, Firat Tekiner, and today we are joined by Kate Wright, who is a Senior Director of Product Management at Looker and Business Intelligence here at Google Cloud. Thank you for being here today, Kate.
Thank you for having me. Always fun to have a chat.
Yes, looking forward to it. So I would like to get some background on your expertise. So could you please tell us about your background and expertise in the field of BI and AI, really?
Yeah, of course. I admit I've been in this business intelligence field for an incredibly long time. I almost don't want to own to the numbers, but sort of a 20-year kind of mark in versions of business intelligence and data and analytics. Through a variety of companies, Business Objects, SAP, Tableau, and Salesforce, and of course now here at Google. And, with respect to specifically the AI side of it, we've seen AI come to the business intelligence field sort of 8 or 9 years ago with force. And so I got the opportunity to really spend some time with some of the classical ML techniques, things like regression and classification and time series forecasting, as we were building them into the business intelligence products to sort of allow the business users to have access to those things without really having to understand them, in the form of automatically creating reports and scoring data and understanding key influencers. And then I kind of continued on that to work on topics where we would take some of those ML models and operationalize them into applications, because of course I was working at Salesforce and SAP, enterprise application companies, and it's all great to do something once, but it's really important. It becomes a lot more powerful when you put it in the operational workflow for end users. And so quite a lot of expertise in sort of the classical ML techniques. And I've also spent some time building natural language query systems as well. And of course, that is like, the topic of the moment, as we've seen natural language query systems and chat systems, become a totally different beast with the onset of LLMs. And so, obviously there's some of that happening now, but I also have spent a couple of years doing that in, the previous world where the technology had a different set of ceilings. Yeah.
That's amazing, right? And then seeing all that evolution, I don't want to call it revolution, but the evolution of AI coming and really changing how, things are impacting. But how did you, if you go back, what made you to get interested in AI as well in the first place? And what is the thing that you find the most fascinating about it as well?
It's like business intelligence it has always historically been about like what's going on or what happened. And then why? But the reality is you ask those questions so that you can do something in the future. And so the reason we brought it into BI and, was to be able to answer like, well, what do you do about it kind of questions. And what really has fascinated me is this difference between what is factual, which is like what happened, and what is approximated or predicted, what might happen. And, I've spent quite a bit of time working with users as we're working through kind of building these capabilities into products and working on like, how do you help them trust and understand that the data is no longer accurate the same way, and you actually have to look at the data differently. And it might not be consistent day to day, what is going to happen tomorrow. And like all those concepts are really difficult for users to get their heads around. And so that's been something that's super fascinated me, is really like that human element of working with AI outputs and the trust associated with it. Again, something that is, very dynamic in today's world.
And I really like the way that you put it, right? So BI is exactly more factual traditionally with everything that you do in data analytics, and then user is more involved at the beginning of it. But the AI is more statistical, right? So you might not get the exact output that you might be looking for, and you are involved more towards the end to analyze the results and make sure that they are the right results as well. And that's awesome way of putting it. Thank you very much. So, and with that, what are the key AI developments that you witnessed during your career that has been spanning for the past 20 plus years?
It's so hard because it does feel like one of those moments. It's like sort of, you have a child and you're like, well, there are the before times and there are the now times, and your life is so different, right? And it's very difficult to think about the evolutions that I saw for like 18, 19 years and then now. And so, I saw an improvement on accessibility. Like we started to see some of these AI techniques get into the hands of more, advanced analysts, and things like citizen data science has come in. And so accessibility has improved, but it hasn't been a huge step function, I would say, in the last, before times. And we've also seen improvements just from the perspective of scale, with GPUs coming in. And again, like it sort of had been improving, and I sort of would say that it was, linear to accelerating. And now it's like a whole different game, right? And you see those scale concepts, the accessibility concepts of some of these techniques are suddenly, I think this is the explosion we're excited about. And so that's the piece that I guess I haven't yet fully witnessed it. But I would say those same kernels, have been occurring for quite some time. It's just that they were occurring with a incremental technology set of improvements rather than an exponential set of technology improvements. Yeah.
I agree, right? And we are very lucky to be just at the heart of this, evolution as well. Again, and I really find it evolutionary as well. But let's look at a little bit of the challenges because, and looking, I would like to explore a little bit, your views around bridging the gap between BI and data analytics together with machine learning, because there are, overlaps that we see traditionally in two separate disciplines, right? Business intelligence and data analytics is usually in one place and machine learning in another place in most of the organizations. How do you see that we tackle that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that I don't know that it's yet changing. Like that's again, it gets to the interesting parts of like the human dynamics and the organizational dynamics that come into play outside of technology. Um, it's one of the things that I have witnessed again and again, and I think I'm witnessing it now, is it's much easier for us all to think of the opportunity incrementally. Like, whether it's LLMs or whether it's AI in general, a lot of the business cases I've talked to organizations about are like, how can we just reduce costs like this small amount? And it's really challenging for people to think about the actual potential use cases they could use. And this is where I think the actual problem comes in. It's less about like an ML department and a BI department, but what we see when we kind of apply some of these capabilities and put them into BI tools is that the people using BI tools do not understand the fundamentals of ML. And so they don't know, it's the classic, I don't know what I don't know problem. And so, the easy example I like to give is when you're preparing data to run machine learning on it, the data set tends to look very different, and you need to engineer the data set in order to get good results. And time again, we saw this problem where people would just take any old data set they already had, typically aggregated data, and they would be like, well, why aren't I getting, predictions on this? Why aren't I getting key influencers, sort of from that BI group? And so you did really end up relying on these other experts in these other places of the organization. And just putting the tools in front of people wasn't enough. And so, I'm hopeful that because we are making this much, much easier, and because I believe that, technologies like LLMs will help, be able to walk that same business analyst through the steps of preparing data to be able to do the right kind of prediction that they want to do. If they ask the right set of questions and if we guide them through the right set of questions, we can kind of avoid that problem where you have to go to this expert community in order to do some of those things, at least the low-hanging fruit. But again, today that problem is very much a human skills and understanding problem, and people not really being incentivized to go after what they don't know and that bigger opportunity that exists. And again, I still see that today. I still, in the conversations with the LLMs, I think a lot of customers are still, thinking incrementally and thinking about how they can, really just tune and improve their business rather than, disrupt it and, these bigger opportunities. And so I think that's the piece that as I'm looking at these two disciplines and these two groups of people, I'm hopeful that we can kind of use LLMs to bridge some of that expertise gap, rather than having, the ML team have to necessarily support everyone, which is sort of, I don't see that problem improving, unfortunately, because it's just too vast, right? The opportunity for ML is too vast for the limited set of people who really understand it to be able to address it.
Yes, and I agree. And I think it is a little bit of a change management within the organizations to have this little bit, different type of mindset as well. And also, I think you are absolutely right that AI teams shouldn't be the bottleneck eventually, that I think we can, close that gap a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So, and with that, specifically, and you alluded a little bit into that, how do you see BI with LLM in mind evolving in the next few years as well?
Yeah, business intelligence is an interesting industry because for the last maybe 8 years or so, we've been really aggressively putting AI into our tooling, and under the description of augmented business intelligence or augmented analytics. And it's come in the form of a variety of things, right? I mentioned key influencers and sort of these classic ML techniques. Natural language query is another one, and automated insight is kind of like that third mega category. And there are of course others. And so that means that what we've been talking about in the business intelligence industry is this huge opportunity around giving users the ability to ask questions on data and get answers, and really improving the accessibility of information to more people. We've been talking about that for a long time. And I think what we found was that the technology ceiling has kind of prevented us from being able to really make that a reality. And of course, some of the organizational concerns. Like, there was a lot of work required for organizations to put this into place well. And then when they did, the user experience didn't really deliver the promise. And so, I think what's interesting for the business intelligence industry is it's really possible that now we're at the point where we can actually go and make these promises a reality, as far as giving the ability for more people to have insights at their fingertips, to be able to ask questions and be guided to get answers. And I think the other piece of it is just, we should be able to automate a ton of manual efforts. So things around like data preparation, things around formula writing, creation of charts. It takes an incredible amount of clicks and tunes and knobs today to set up a chart that looks good, right? From a styling perspective, from a number formatting perspective, from like how you want the axes to be aligned in the legend. We should be able to make things look good and be a best fit like a lot faster. We should be able to get people 90% of the way there, a lot more. And so I see sort of this accessibility theme and then this kind of automation theme that really, I think, are going to come and hit business intelligence and sort of deliver on some of this opportunity that we've been talking about for some time.
Yes, and I'll keep that in mind, accessibility and automation. And I think you are spot on there as well. And if you look at the little bit on the challenges, specifically on the generative AI, on the BI ecosystem, right? So it is how do you see that it is currently being used, and how do you see what value that it is going to bring to organizations? So I'm really asking two questions in one, in a sense, as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of the challenges we have been seeing for some time, I think, are going to manifest themselves even worse in the Gen AI world, right? And so if you look at what has happened, business intelligence has had this huge boom of self-service, democratization of information. But when we talk about that, we've really democratized it to data people who sit outside of IT, not to non-data people. And so you have this huge group of analysts and again, sort of business analysts working with these tools, and a huge amount of artifacts and data sets that are fragmented, that are inconsistent across each other. And that's where really most of the business logic and the intelligence lives, is in these individual reports and these individual, extracts and cubes of data inside these BI tools and these self-service tools. And the challenge is going to be that the opportunity for us with Gen AI is to really make sure that we are able to give people answers quickly. But in order to do that, we have to have a trusted, resilient set of information to operate on. And it's very unlikely in the world where you have 3 different dashboards that do the same thing and calculate stuff differently that we're going to be able to get those answers, right? And so I think this is one of the challenges we have today, that we have to figure out how we really implement properly, and that organizations implement properly, is getting to that trusted enterprise data. It will become an even bigger problem and an even bigger opportunity for us to deliver with Gen AI. We're starting to see LLMs in the industry with again, formula writing, with chart generation, with some data prep and things like that. And again, with improving the natural language query systems that we've had for some time. But I think it's still really early. And in most cases, we're still seeing that in the context of an existing dashboard, right? And so if I send you a dashboard, it's great that you can ask a question in the context of the data that was extracted with that. But it's also very likely that you have a question that's related on data that was not extracted at the time the analyst thought about it. And then also, is the answer going to be right? Is anybody there curating to make sure that it's consistent? And so I think there's this piece where the demos are starting to look good, but as far as them really being powerfully meaningful, I think we're still not quite there yet.
And I think that becomes the data problem, right? So it will be as good as the data that you are feeding into the system at the end of the day. And Gen
Yeah.
AI is supporting that a little bit, but with the human element still. And I think
Yeah.
that's the key.
And
Uh,
that's where for organizations the opportunity lies, is like, again, back to the human, right? Back to the ease of use being radically improved for so many more people. And if they can get value very quickly because the ease of use is so improved, then the organizations can actually use data, to make decisions, as as the dream says, right? And this is where, being able to do that repeatedly on trusted information, that is where the value comes in for the organization. And so you
yes.
have, ease of use, more people accessing it, more people working together to make decisions on trusted data. That is the value, because they should be able to really have people actually be on top of their business goals, which I think today not enough of us are confident that we really understand what's going on.
Yes, totally agreed. And I think the value will be added, as you say, by bringing new folks into the game, but also using the more expensive and very capable folks more efficiently as well by automating some of the tasks that they've been doing.
That's right. That's right.
And looking ahead with AI and business intelligence, what do you believe the most exciting potential application of AI and Gen AI we are yet to see as well?
Yeah, it's I think I'm excited for two things, right? I'm excited about the, applications that come in when anybody can kind of write code. And it's not like, you sort of seeing this start to happen now, where it's like you're asking a system to go do something, and rather than it knowing how to do that, it's actually calling out and actually scripting the, how it's going to get that answer for you, which, creates kind of this infinite quantity of possibilities. And so we're not necessarily as tied to the functionality of any specific application, but it again brings so much power to so many people. And so I think in the BI context, we don't really know what that possibility is yet, but that's huge. And it also makes, the more code addressable the architectures are that we're working with, and the more developer friendly they are, of course, that tends to help us because they can be addressed by APIs, right? And so I think there's exciting potential there. And the other piece, like for me, I make so many slides, and I end up telling stories as part of my job so often. And I am a terrible visual designer. And I don't make a lot of dashboards, or I don't make a lot of visual reports, but I do, again, I storytell, and I storytell with data often. And I am so ready for these systems to become my visual designer in my pocket and make things beautiful for me. And I think that's the other thing, is the creative aspects that can bring that to some of us who maybe don't have that so naturally, and make that accessible. I think is also really exciting. And again, like, help me do this, but help me write it as a limerick, so that when I'm engaging my team, I can tell them a story about how we had a great quarter, but I can do it in a funny way, right? Like, there's so many opportunities around some of that honestly gets me excited, and we haven't really even touched yet.
And I agree, and it gives us the ability to extend what we have in our mind will be more easily reflected within the charts and everything else as well. And my last question is
Yeah.
around what advice would you give to individuals and the businesses to prepare for the future, which AI is definitely going to play an even more significant role, right? And we hear a lot of horror stories. Everyone is going to lose their jobs, and robots are going to take over, and everything else as well. What's your views?
Oof, those are two loaded questions. For as far as advice, I'd focus on like two things. One is, yeah, skills and training. I think it also helps us all have more confidence as humans on what's really happening if we understand it better. So making sure the general population understands ML concepts, understands, like, the more technical people understand a little bit of Python, and that we all, understand a little bit about prompt writing. Like, just again, those basics. Like, if you think about, how we all have to be upskilled on phishing concepts, anybody who works in the enterprise, right? It's not that we're all security experts, but we know the basics, and, that helps keep us safe. And I would say, feeling like you understand your role in this new universe is helpful if you understand the technology a little better. And so that kind of training, I think, honestly, should go to the general populace. I haven't quite figured out how to educate my 9-year-old yet, but I'm working on it. And then I would also say that is what leads into your second question, right? Is like, is like how do we think about a world where so many things will get automated? And I think that's where, nobody can predict the future, but I think this is our opportunity to just reframe how our jobs might evolve, where it might be less about, turning those knobs and finding those 17 clicks inside the BI tool, and instead like writing really great prompts and engaging in systems that can extend those tools for you, and leaning on, how you can, what part of your job you can be amazing at. That's that 10% that really matters, because these are all going to be human assisted systems, right? And so I am pretty confident that we have a lot of humans that are still going to be involved in the workforce, but I do think it would help us all to understand a bit what that might look like by just kind of feeling confident and getting skilled up.
I agree with you, and I think as you say, foundations will be the key. If you define foundations, you'll be able to leverage these tools better. In fact, this was reflected by some research been done in MIT, which was published last month as well, which I was reading, coming into that. And the economies are going to grow as a result of this rather than shrinking, so it is going to generate even more roles for everyone. Thank you for joining us today, Kate. It has been incredibly insightful to hear your thoughts and on the impact and effective use of the AI. We look forward to seeing how AI will continue to shape the world around us, and hope our viewers will be inspired to embrace its potential and opportunities. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun, and I'm excited to figure it out together.